Princess Kate. Beautiful.
And her father and mother, who...
Princess Kate.
Had only had about 12 or 13.
Princess Kate. Beautiful. Kind. Sophisticated. And stylish. Not to mention funny, sporty, and game for a laugh.
The perfect Princess of Wales.
When Kate married William, it cemented the hopes and dreams of the nation.
Kate was the first so-called commoner to marry a future king for 350 years.
And while some mourned the absence of Diana,
she must have been conscious of the decades where Diana had held center stage and that enormous legacy that she has left behind.
She has influenced Princess Kate every step of the way.
I'm convinced that her style is very much the style of Diana.
In this film, we will explore how the experiences of Diana have stood Kate in good stead to become the woman, mother...
They are very hands-on parents, and very much like Diana.
...and princess that so far seems to have got everything right.
That's a big ask, marrying into that family, becoming the Princess of Wales, but she's done it at her own pace.
Learning from the woman who held the title before her.
Diana smashed royal traditions, she broke royal mould, she pushed the parameters, and I think we see Kate doing that in her own way.
May 2023, the King's coronation. The eyes of the world are not only on King Charles, but on his son and daughter-in-law, William and Kate, the new Prince and Princess of Wales. The Waleses are dressed in magnificent ceremonial robes and medals, reflecting their new status.
Kate, as Princess of Wales, had an incredibly important and central role in the coronation ceremonies.
When you look at the Princess of Wales as she now is, this is a queen in waiting. I don't think Kate has ever looked more regal than she did at the coronation of King Charles III.
Kate's ivory silk gown by Alexander McQueen is coated in silver embroidery to represent the 4 home nations.
She also chose to wear a pair of Diana's earrings, so Diana was present at the coronation.
Her inclusion of Diana's jewels, that's a really important touch to history, to heritage, and of course to the mother-in-law that she never met.
It is more than 20 years since Kate first started dating Prince William. She has gone from girlfriend of a future heir to the throne to Duchess of Cambridge, now Princess of Wales, and finally, one day, she'll be our queen.
She never really sought the limelight. She fell in love with a prince and therefore took on the role. I think that makes her unique in a way because she's doing the job for the nation, she's not doing it for herself.
Kate has been the subject of endless comparisons with the former Princess of Wales, Diana.
Diana was an international star. And still is. I mean, on the front page of magazines, still sells magazines.
Diana was a remarkable member of the royal family. There's never really been anyone quite like her. No one has replaced her in the fame gallery, if you like.
But she has embraced these comparisons and used them to help her master her role confidently and in her own way.
Kate is not that person. She is the Princess of Wales, but she is not Diana, doesn't want to be that sort of star.
And I think on one level, she's probably highly flattered by it.
How often do you scan them to see if the tumour's shrunk?
Kate has acknowledged herself what a force for change Diana was, and I think William and Kate are trying to follow in his mother's footsteps and take that change on and keep it going.
haven't seen the ring. Maybe have a look at
Yes. Wonderful saffron diamond.
William proposed to Kate using Diana's engagement ring.
We were there at the palace on the day of the engagement. This ring, this sparkling ring, it was the first thing I noticed because it was so iconic.
He gave her the engagement ring and made it a point to underline the symbolic importance of that, which is to include his mother in the journey that they were about to embark on.
I don't think any woman could wear that ring. It had to be someone like Kate, who was strong enough within herself to wear that ring with all the memories and associations it carries and make the path of being ultimately the Princess of Wales her own. You see that she wears that ring with pride. She very, very rarely takes it off. I've been at all sorts of engagements with her where she's, getting down on her hands and knees with some kids to do some gardening, planting a tree or whatever she might be doing. And she's always wearing that engagement ring. It's clearly very precious to her. And of course, it was very precious to William.
It's my mother's engagement ring. This was my way of keeping her sort of close to it all.
Kate paid tribute to Diana in their engagement interview in 2010.
I would love to have met her, and she's obviously she's an inspirational woman to look up to.
William and Kate were determined from the very beginning that Kate would be her own person.
William made it very clear in that first engagement interview that he didn't expect his future wife to step into his mother's shoes.
What she did is fantastic. It's about making your own future and your own destiny, and Kate will do a very good job of that.
Kate would go on to develop a real ability to connect with the public, thanks to her normal, albeit upper-middle-class, upbringing.
Thank you. She was very proud of who she was and where she came from, and very proud of her family.
In contrast, Diana was born into aristocracy.
Diana mingled with the royal family. Her grandmother was a lady-in-waiting to the Queen,
but spent her life battling to break free.
She was the absolute royal rebel, Diana. She modernised the royal family. She took it into uncharted waters. Even the Queen had to adjust to Diana's legacy.
Sister, that's young Catherine over here. Katie.
Katie!
Kate was born into a middle-class family in Berkshire.
She grew up in the countryside, not far from Windsor, with her parents, Michael and Carol, who ran a party planning company.
The Middletons are self-made people.
Kate's ancestors on one side were miners in County Durham.
Kate's mother herself was brought up in a council flat.
Lots of chocolate for me to eat, lots of cow.
The young Kate showcases her performing ability in these two school productions. In one of them, her character on stage seems to predict her future life.
Soon you shall meet a handsome man, a rich gentleman. It is all I ever hoped for.
Kate went on to have a higher education. She went to university.
Rich and handsome.
She went to St Andrews, where destiny awaited.
A very prestigious university where a young prince is also going.
You'll marry me.
And that's where the meeting happens.
Yes, so yes, dear William.
And many years later, when she became a real-life princess, Kate wowed everyone with her performing skills in this ITV Christmas Carol concert.
Kate was always a very keen pianist. Her music tutor has actually spoken about how talented she was. The first time we heard her play was at her Christmas Carol concert, where she surprised everybody by suddenly walking to the piano in the middle of the church and playing a song. Again, at the Eurovision Song Contest, people were astounded that she'd recorded a performance for the event.
Music is something Kate has in common with her late mother-in-law.
Diana certainly had a great passion for music, both popular, classical, all different styles.
I'm a great believer in having music wherever I go, whether it's a headset or a radio or a record player.
Diana was quite a good pianist.
I really enjoy it. It's very therapeutic.
But in contrast to Kate, Diana was an aristocrat.
She was brought up on the Sandringham estate. She mingled with the royal family.
She grew up in Park House, practically next door to the Queen, whom she called Aunt Lilibet.
Her play dates were with Prince Andrew. She played with the young princes.
Very proud, very happy. Happy for Diana.
Her father was an equerry to King George VI and later to Queen Elizabeth. Both of her grandmothers were ladies-in-waiting to the Queen Mother and then to the Queen. So she was very used to, I suppose, the aristocratic way of life.
Diana famously said she left without an O-level. She then spent a few months at a Swiss finishing school where the main task of educating the daughters of landed gentry was to show them how to write a cheque and how to find a rich husband.
So both of them were privately educated, but of course Kate took her education that much further. Diana didn't go to university.
She had no ambition to go on to higher education because it simply wasn't on offer to her. And that's the key thing where education comes in. I mean, she was not Charles's intellectual equal.
Catherine Middleton.
Kate is most certainly William's intellectual equal and probably a few steps higher up, actually.
And there was another difference between Kate and Diana's upbringing.
Kate was brought up in a loving home, very close to her siblings, and a father and mother who adore one another. Diana, as we know, was brought up in a broken home, and it had an effect on her throughout her entire life.
Kate's stable family life will have stood her in good stead in her relationship with William. After meeting at St Andrews University, they enjoyed a 9-year courtship.
Their relationship developed as equals, despite the disparity in their backgrounds.
And she was very much her own woman.
Kate was the first so-called commoner to marry a future king for 350 years. She was the first princess to walk the catwalk in her lingerie. And she was the first future queen to cohabit with her boyfriend, which in Diana's day would have been seen as living in sin.
Diana in the 1980s and Kate in the 2000s had very different experiences of dating an heir to the throne. Lady Diana Spencer was just 19 when she first started seeing Charles, who was 12 years older.
There are several things you can draw out of the way the relationships began in both cases. With Diana, it was an all too brief and extremely formal experience.
These two who, let's not forget, had only had about 12 or 13 dates before they actually got married, a lot of which was conducted on the telephone. They barely knew each other.
She had to call Charles Sir when they were in public, and often there were other people present in what passed for the courting that they did. He would invite her to dinners at Buckingham Palace, and usually she was surrounded often by really quite elderly people. And it must have been very hard for this young woman.
Diana's courtship with Charles was in complete contrast to the independence she enjoyed in her job as a nursery nurse.
Why did you go into teaching? What prompted you? Well, I adore children.
Diana was working as a nursery school assistant and nannying as well. She had to deal with members of the public, parents of the children who came to the school. She had to make appointments and things like that, which apparently she was very good at.
Diana was a natural with the children she worked with, as witnessed by Kay Seth Smith, who ran the nursery in Pimlico.
From the minute she walked in, you could tell that she had a really genuine love for young children, particularly the very small ones.
While Diana's engagement to Charles led to her leaving the job she loved, Kate, perhaps wisely, continued working while preparing for her royal career.
Kate worked as a fashion accessories buyer. She worked for the Middleton family firm, which was to do with party planning and party paraphernalia.
Which perhaps wasn't seen as a serious job by some people, but it kept her busy. It kept her safe and protected, and it also meant that she could work around William's routine. By this point, he was working his way through all factions of the army, and he then went on to train with the RAF as well. And she was able to support his military career and be with him because she wasn't in a rigid 9-to-5 job.
In early 2007, William briefly ended their relationship, worrying whether Kate was suitable and not wanting to be rushed as his parents had been. This led to Kate being criticised for neediness and dubbed Weighty Katie by the tabloid press.
I remember spending a lot of time in Bougie nightclub, and there was an ongoing joke that when Kate came into the club, you would hear whispers from some of William's friends of doors to manual, which was a reference to Kate's parents both being in the airline industry. Her father worked for BA for many years and her mother was an air hostess.
When it came to Kate's response to this, she was better able to deal with it. Because even though she comes from new money, the family is rather wealthy. She is able to keep up with the Joneses, as it were. She wasn't uncomfortable in the circles that William moved in. In fact, she fitted right in.
She was very secure in who she was and where she came from. And I think not just secure, she was very proud of who she was and where she came from, and very proud of her family.
The relationship soon rekindled. And on Kate's birthday in 2007, she found herself chased by the media when it seemed that an engagement announcement might be imminent.
She could barely get out of her flat in Chelsea because there were so many paps trying to get that picture of the birthday girl.
Is there any possibility of any announcement of your marriage in the near future? Can you tell me?
Kate's treatment by the press seemed at first to be uncannily similar to how Diana had been treated 2 decades before.
There is a real similarity in terms of the media treatment of Diana and Kate.
Diana faced unprecedented scrutiny when she first started going out with the then Prince Charles. Cameras followed her everywhere.
She was photographed outside the nursery that she was working at, that famous image of her sort of coming out in that see-through skirt, so that everyone could see her legs. She was a front-page news story from that day on.
She was young, glamorous, and photographs of her sold for big money.
I remember being outside Lady Diana's flat all those years ago too. Diana was always a model of courtesy and politeness.
How well are you coping with all the press attention?
Well, as you can see, you can tell.
But she never got any help, and that was a source of some friction between her and Charles throughout the marriage, and she often used to hark back to the fact that she was left to sink or swim on her own.
William and Kate managed to maintain a level of privacy for a while until inevitably the story broke.
They were finally photographed together in an embrace on the slopes of Closters on a skiing trip. But as soon as that picture was out and the secret was out, Kate Middleton was never going to have a sort of normal life again.
And William began doing something which sadly Prince Charles didn't do for Lady Diana all those years ago. He took legal steps and other remedies to protect his girlfriend. This was a big test for Kate. She handled it pretty well.
At 3 o'clock, Prince Charles and Lady Diana appeared for the first time in public.
When the 2 royal engagements were announced,
But he's getting on a bit, isn't it? About time we got married. I think she's just the right person for him.
the couple's interviews could not have been more different.
When you look at the engagement day interviews for Charles and Diana and William and Kate,
We sort of met in a proud field.
you can see how far times have moved.
There's a true romantic in that.
There is.
You said yes, obviously.
Of course, yes.
The 2010 engagement interview found William and Kate as relaxed as you could expect them to be, on a sofa, looking at each other, making eye contact, finishing each other's sentences, and one got a strong sense of mutual support and love and affection.
Quite interesting to see who can keep secrets. But it did pop up in the Times.
When you compare that to Charles and Diana's rather stilted conversation with reporters, the contrast is striking.
And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on. And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
I mean, Diana and Charles were virtual strangers to each other.
When you go out with someone for quite a long time, you do get to know each other very, very well.
Kate and William, they knew each other.
I'm obviously extremely funny and she loves that, so it's really good.
She probably knew everything that there was to know about her prince.
Glad that I've had the time to sort of to grow and understand myself more as well, so hopefully...
Does that mean I've done well?
Hopefully do a good job, yes.
Good.
Whereas Diana knew next to nothing of hers.
I've had a small run out to it all in the last 6 months.
When Diana married, she married someone who was going to be king, and yet she was very young, uneducated, unsupported in the ways of the institution, and one got a strong sense that the support she needed was not forthcoming from her husband.
But I'm sure it'd be lovely, it'd be lovely if the children could come as well, definitely.
One of the reasons that William said he waited so long to propose was to make sure she had had a proper chance to look in, to see how royal life worked and to work out if that was really what she wanted for the rest of her life. And luckily for William, this gorgeous girl loved him enough to sacrifice so much.
Ultimately, Charles and Diana's marriage was not a happy one. Diana famously described Camilla Parker Bowles as the third person in her relationship with Charles, and by 1992 they were separated. Their divorce was made official in 1996. Just 1 year later, Diana died in a car crash in Paris.
Diana's life changed the royal family, and Diana's death really changed the royal family. I think the experience that Diana had and the tragic end informed how new people were brought into the family, and Kate Middleton is clearly a successful example of allowing time to bed in and become part of the setup.
Yet the memory of Diana is never very far from the surface.
Kate is well aware of the place of Diana in her husband's memory, and she has tried in her own way to respect that. And I think this is very clear from what she has said about significant moments in her life, including her wedding.
One area where William and Kate would miss Diana most would be in their home life with their children.
Diana would have been a fantastic grandma. William misses her every single day because he knows what sort of grandma she would have been.
But William and Kate's parenting style took a huge leaf out of Diana's book.
William and Kate were brought up in a similar manner. Both their mothers instilled in them a sense of duty, but also a huge sense of fun.
A generation later, yes, of course there is privilege, but they are living remarkably ordinary lives.
When William and Kate posed on the steps of the Lindo wing of St Mary's Hospital with their son George, it was impossible not to remember Diana doing exactly the same thing in the same place when William was born.
Kate has obviously followed in the footsteps, and it was another reference to Diana that she chose something which was very familiar to people who remember pictures of Princess Diana and the baby William emerging from hospital too.
Diana had been part of a new generation to have her children in hospital, albeit the private wing of St Mary's in London. Charles and his siblings were all born in royal residences. The birth of Prince William was the cause of great celebration outside the hospital.
At St Mary's Paddington, their euphoria overflowed into song.
I asked them not to make too much noise. When I've gone, some sleep is badly needed.
That really was another major advance, if you like, which Diana pioneered.
From the off, it was clear that, like Diana, Kate would be mum first and princess second. Something William would have been delighted about.
The prince and princess emerged showing no sign of the long flight.
Diana was also the first royal to take her child with her on an overseas tour.
She had to fight to get permission to do this because it was frowned upon. I mean, we don't do this sort of thing. Children remain at home.
In 1983, the 9-month-old Prince William accompanied her and Prince Charles to Australia and New Zealand.
He loves his koala bear he's got. He just likes something with a bit of noise. We've got a plastic whale that throws things out the top, little balls.
Because it was such a long tour, and because she had a newborn baby, she absolutely dug her heels in and insisted that William should come with them. Wherever they were, they could head back to their house and be with the young William, and it was there that they witnessed his first steps.
Now swing high, swing low for the young prince.
It was very different to Charles's experience as a young child.
It brings back that memory of that incredible formal greeting of Prince Charles greeting his mother, aged 5, when she came back from some incredibly long worldwide tour in the 1950s. That was never going to happen when Diana became Princess of Wales and a mother.
In 1983, at just 9 months old, Prince William had one of his first press photo calls on that tour of Australia and New Zealand.
In Wellington, there was a photo call with Charles and Diana, and baby William crawling around on the rug there with 20 photographers, 30 photographers there.
30 years later, in 2014, Kate and William were also accompanied by their infant son, Prince George, also on a tour of Australia and New Zealand. But they had a little more control over how their son was photographed.
What they set up was a sort of mini playgroup with, I don't know, 10 other children there, and George was part of that. The briefing we got was, this is not history repeating itself.
Whilst Kate did not want a repetition of the media scrum that Diana's children had been subjected to, she has benefited from her late mother-in-law digging her heels in over childcare. Diana famously ignored royal traditions when it came to raising her boys.
She wanted them to experience what she called ordinary life.
Preferring to take William and Harry for a burger or to a theme park.
What Diana really wanted to do was to give them a sort of a rounded education, certainly, but also a life that was seen what every other child of that age has.
And that meant queuing, not going to the front of the queue, for example, at McDonald's in Kensington High Street. She famously did that on many occasions. Going to the cinema, having their playmates back for play dates at the palace, and allowing the children to go out as well to stay with their friends.
Diana's modern parenting style was different to Charles's. He preferred to teach the boys more traditional royal pursuits such as hunting and fishing, as shown in this ITV documentary from 1994.
I remember them coming back once, and Father was stood by the front door, and he said, "You had a good time?" He said, "Oh, yes, Papa." He said, "We've had some really good burgers." And he sort of looked at Diana and said, "I don't understand why you take them to these bars."
The popular memory of Diana is of a mother who was determined to give Harry and William as normal a life as she could, as much as possible without servants.
Charles had been brought up with governesses, educated at least until the age of 5 or 6 inside Buckingham Palace. And Diana made it quite clear, and Charles went along with this, that William and Harry, it was going to be a different story.
A generation later, when you look at Prince George and Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, yes, of course there is privilege, but they are living remarkably ordinary lives.
They live in a 4-bedroom cottage, Adelaide Cottage, on the Windsor estate, so obviously there's no bedrooms for staff.
George, welcome to Lambury. Louis, welcome.
William and Kate will get the children up, get them ready for school. One of them will drive the children to school, and later they'll cook supper and chat to them as any other family in Britain.
How's that?
These children have birthday parties, Kate bakes the cakes, they have friends over. They don't have lavish holidays, they're often having bucket and spade holidays in Norfolk, where they have a second home, or up on the Scilly Isles.
In many ways, William and Kate were brought up in a similar manner. Both their mothers were extraordinarily loving and caring, and instilled in them a sense of duty and responsibility, but also a huge sense of fun.
That sense of fun with Diana was in marked contrast to the intense scrutiny she and her young children faced. Even before Diana's death, her sons were wary of what William called tographers. Diana found herself increasingly forced to make deals with journalists, to trade photo calls in exchange for private time where she would not be interrupted.
The early days of William when he went to school, I always remember when Diana got in the back of the car on his first day and said to him, "Look, you know, when we get there are going to be lots of photographers, so I don't want you to muck about." And he said, "I don't like tographers." And she said, "Well, look, you better get used to it because you're going to get this for the rest of your life."
Kate has found a way of getting around the constant clamour for pictures of her children, one which gives her more control.
What Kate has done, which is very interesting, is used her skills as a photographer, so she takes the pictures of the children, and I think that's fabulous.
And actually in doing so, got the most wonderful, candid and authentic images with her children, because of course it was Mummy behind the lens, and she got cracking pictures.
The pictures that she chooses to take of her children, released via her social media, instantly devalues the sales potential of any paparazzi photos.
They patrol their privacy very, very diligently. They offer up a glimpse of home life from time to time, just enough to keep the public and the media satisfied, but there are absolute boundaries.
Thank you, Cinderella.
Royal experts point to another difference between Diana and Kate in terms of media coverage.
Diana made friends with the media. She famously networked with the media. She thought that might help her. It didn't.
I was not aware of how overwhelming that attention would become, nor the extent to which it would affect both my public duties and my personal life.
Kate and William haven't done anything like that. They have a cordial relationship with the media generally, but it's very much at arm's length.
Photographers will tell you that you couldn't take a bad picture of Diana. And the difference between Diana and Kate, certainly in the early days for Kate, is that she wouldn't look at the photographers. Diana would. She would look at the cameras. And that's the shot.
Perhaps now more comfortable in her role, Kate has learnt to embrace the spotlight.
And we all remember how magnificent she looked at the funeral of Prince Philip. There was that one moment where she actually stared into a camera, incredibly poised.
She was restrained and elegant.
And on a day of intense public pressure for the royal family, I think she was an example very much of grace under pressure.
Diana famously used her global profile to highlight the work of the charities and causes she supported. Kate has also used being in the public eye as a force for good, showcasing a compassionate nature with her charity work.
With effective palliative care, lives can be transformed.
With Kate and William, they've got a very small portfolio of charities. She has very deliberately targeted those areas where she has something to say.
It must be really challenging for you and the team here as well.
So it was of no great surprise that she wanted to get involved with children's charities.
And of course, more recently, she's really invested her time in the Early Years campaign.
The campaign is fundamentally about shining a spotlight on the critical importance of early childhood.
The Shaping Us project is very much Kate's legacy project. She's put a lot of time and passion and energy into learning how important the early years is to a child's development.
Kate's choice of charities has been deeply personal to her, but she learned from Diana about how to get people to listen.
Mental health, like the problems of drug and alcohol misuse, does not easily attract public sympathy.
Diana was determined to throw the spotlight onto unpopular and, at the time, socially difficult causes.
Eating disorders, whether it be anorexia or bulimia.
Diana, when, for instance, she was visiting AIDS patients, she was actually holding their hands at a time when there was a great deal of misconception about how AIDS spread through touch. So she was breaking down barriers.
HIV does not make people dangerous to know. So you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it.
One of Diana's last trips to Angola in 1997 was her most controversial.
Landmines, nobody had ever taken that on before. It was sort of veering into politics, but Diana's point was it's not party political. It's just they shouldn't be used. Full stop.
These are the things that have been killing a lot of the children around town.
Diana was baffled that they were trying to pull her into party politics here or make it a political controversy.
I'm not a political figure. I am a humanitarian figure.
Kate may be wary of straying into politics, but she has not been afraid to tackle difficult issues.
Mental health just kept on flagging up every time, whether it's with addiction or school support.
The mental health campaign, which really she championed, she did it with William and Harry, but it was her idea. She came up with the idea to make it a part of the national conversation.
People feel afraid to admit that they are struggling with their mental health. This fear of judgment stops people from getting the help that they need, which can destroy families and end lives.
Kate has, I think, taken a leaf out of Diana's book by not being afraid to take on stigmas and charities that are difficult, that are hard to talk about.
Action on Addiction was one of my very first patronages, and as such, it is very close to my heart.
She recognises, just as Diana did, that she has that unique spotlight. She can put her attention on a cause and ultimately do some real good.
She's also a hugger. She touches people, she engages with them, she's unafraid of reaching out. And I think there is a great deal of synergy.
As Kate's role within the royal firm grew, so too did her confidence to embrace her late mother-in-law's memory publicly, from talking about her.
She miss her every day. Although she never met her, she's made it very clear that Diana is a central part of their lives.
To emulating her style.
She's seen a dress that Diana's worn, and she said, well, I'll take something from that, I'll echo that, I'll wear the same colour. That's a really important touch to the mother-in-law that she never met.
All while avoiding the pitfalls that Diana faced.
She was in a marriage that almost wasn't going to work anyway.
Thanks in part to the love and support of her husband.
She and William are partners. They're clearly in love. They don't appear to be competing with each other. And one often found that that wasn't the case with Charles and Diana.
Kate has been instrumental in helping to modernise the royals. And when it comes to fashion, this princess is not just a designer girl.
Even when she's on duty, Kate likes this sort of high street vibe, which I think makes her accessible in a way, and the public respond to it. The Kate effect, it's been called. A shop can sell out on something instantly when she wears it.
I think Kate very cleverly mixes high street and designer fashion, which obviously appeals to people who want to emulate her look.
I remember being told by someone who worked very closely with her that certainly in the early years of her marriage, she just wasn't interested in fashion. It's only in recent years that she's become a style icon.
And there is often an echo of Diana in what Kate chooses to wear.
What's so lovely about some of Kate's style choices and outfits, particularly after the births of her children, when she's paid that sort of tribute to Diana, you can see she's looked back over the archive, she's seen a dress that Diana's worn, and she said, well, I'll take something from that, I'll echo that, I'll wear the same colour. That's a really important touch to the mother-in-law that she never met.
Diana would surely have loved these nods to her wardrobe, being the ultimate trendsetter.
The royal arrival bowled over even the people of this blasé town.
Throughout the 80s and 90s, Diana regularly topped the best dress lists and was posthumously named by Time magazine as one of its all-time 100 greatest fashion icons. Kate has also wowed with some amazing outfits.
Another iconic moment was when Kate turned up at the premiere of No Time to Die in an amazing gold dress by Jenny Packham.
Glamorous and totally outshining the dapper James Bond at the premiere of his latest film. Both the women have used fashion to send out the right message, whether it's personal or professional, and at the right time.
One of Diana's most well-known outfits was a black dress she wore in 1994.
Diana, in that very iconic black dress at the Serpentine Gallery, which has been referred to as that revenge dress.
She wore the so-called revenge dress on the same night that Charles gave an explosive TV interview to Jonathan Dimbleby about their marriage.
Did you try to be faithful and honourable to your wife when you took on the vow of marriage?
Yes, absolutely.
And you were?
Yes. Until it became irretrievably broken down.
Despite the lurid confessions about Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, the next day, Diana grabbed the headlines. While the royal family was rocked by Charles and Diana's separation and divorce in the 1990s, Kate has also had to deal with a damaging feud between her husband William and brother-in-law Harry. Harry has publicly criticised both William and Kate in TV interviews and in his own memoirs.
I think Kate has been deeply wounded by the ongoing media bombshells.
She hasn't responded, she never has. She sucks it up in an admirably royal way.
It has been reported that Kate was responsible for ensuring the line, "Recollections may vary," remained in the royal response to accusations of racism in Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey. Perhaps learning lessons from Diana's very public fallout with Charles, Kate seems focused on repairing this family rift from within.
She was the absolute royal rebel, Diana, but Kate comes to it from a different generation and from a different viewpoint.
At the funeral of Prince Philip, everyone noted how when an occasion arose for her to allow the two brothers, William and Harry, to walk together and hopefully to engage, she neatly stepped back in the most graceful, unobtrusive way.
And when Queen Elizabeth died in 2022, the Fab Four reunited to thank the public for their floral tributes.
They had to overcome the deep trauma inflicted by recent developments within the royal household and present a united front.
When they did the royal walkabout, she apparently said that it was the hardest thing she'd ever had to do.
Obviously, she wanted to do it because it was important to recognise the memory of the Queen. She gets what the institution is, and she knows how destabilising and damaging this rift is between their two biggest stars. It's a situation she would like to see repaired.
And perhaps that is one of the most significant ways in which Kate can help to honour Diana's legacy, bringing her two sons back together.
She has an ability to come across as someone who is empathetic and may be able to bridge some of the chasms within the royal family, maybe act as a peacemaker, a conciliator.
Although they were destined never to meet, the late Princess of Wales continues to play a part in the life of the current one.
Kate would have grown up knowing Princess Diana as most people did, which was through the television, through the newspapers, and through the lens of the media. But of course, she will have come to know Diana over all of these years through William's memory.
I think it shows how confident Kate has become with her role in the family, that she's now happy to talk about Princess Diana. Although she never met her, she's made it very clear that Diana is a central part of their lives. And we've seen the children making Mother's Day cards for Diana as well as for Kate. She's always included in the picture. For obvious reasons, she's William's mother.
During this rainy royal meet and greet, videoed by a fan and posted on social media, Kate gave a rare insight into her heartfelt thoughts on Diana.
Do this every day. Oh, she would have been grandmother until
Their daughter, Princess Charlotte, has Diana as one of her middle names.
The middle names are Elizabeth, Diana, honouring her grandmother and her great-grandmother. So, Diana lives on in the legacy there.
Diana's experience of royalty was not always an easy one.
Nobody gave Diana a book of instructions on how to become a princess, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Nobody said that.
So how has Kate carved out her role as Princess of Wales within the royal firm?
She and William are partners. They're clearly in love, and she is willing and able to follow the lead he sets. That's really key to a successful professional but also personal relationship.
So you can see that William is very supportive of Kate. They tend to greet the crowds together. They're very comfortable together.
They don't appear to be competing with each other. And one often found that that wasn't the case with Charles and Diana. Kate is a daughter-in-law that Diana would have approved of, because she combines those gifts that Diana really valued, using royal privilege, but having genuine empathy for those less privileged. The combination of beauty and duty.
Kate obviously is following in Diana's footsteps, but there comes a point in the timeline where they just go their separate ways because there's a new Princess of Wales now who's doing things her own way.